Well, I'm thrilled this afternoon to have opportunity to present what we're doing in Miami-Dade County, but also happy to see this panel has three brilliant women who are going to bracket what I say. Erin did a wonderful job introducing this subject. You're going to hear from my two associates I work with a lot after Nate. So here, a little short story on Miami-Dade County, how we approach many of these issues. Next slide. You know, this is no surprise to you from the Southwest coast, how we're surrounded by water and Everglades bracketing our western boundary in the Atlantic and dealing with the specific structures, land structures that are very specific to our side of the peninsula. So the beaches are always a dominant feature and we have to manage them. But as you can see in the background, human society has intervened dramatically on the skyline of Miami, and that's part of what we have to deal with now and in the future. Next slide, please. So that geology that we live with is a lime rock forest foundation that under grids most of Dade County, a little bit of South Broward. Porous doesn't really allow you to do certain things along the coastline that many of you may read about, you know, that the Dutch are doing, other folks. You just have heavy seawater moving forward with the pressure of rising seas will penetrate into our groundwater and force the groundwater table up, which affects our drainage. And of course, if it comes in far enough, it could threaten our drinking water. So this is some of the cards we were dealt. This lime rock is great when you mine it and make it into cement and make buildings. But it is what, and the good thing about it is it's stable. But it is what we have to deal with on our side of the peninsula. Next slide, please. So we have a long history of dealing with these issues of climate change, both from the standpoint, probably the longest with mitigation. We started inventorying greenhouse gases back actually before 2009 in the 1990s. But we also progressed joining international and national organizations, joining the regional compact, the Southeast Florida Regional Compact. I know regional efforts are underway also in the Southwest and other parts of the state. We had a particularly fruitful integration among our cities and county using the 100 Resilient Cities program. You'll see the release of the Resilient 305 strategy. I won't go in detail, but except for a few slides, but that is a broad definition of resilience, much broader than just climate. And we have specific studies underway, which we are implementing on adaptation and mitigation of greenhouse gases. And we have, as those of you on the Southwest coast, we partner a lot with the Corps, South Florida Water Management District on much of this work. Next slide, please. So our office has grown as we've understood the threat and comprehensiveness of the situation. We have staff working in teams around mitigation to be part of the worldwide effort to reduce greenhouse gases, around adaptation, taking advantage of much of those funding opportunities that Erin talked about now from the state. We at the very beginning thought that communication was an equal component to our office. While all of us are tasked with doing that in our work, we wanted to elevate it to make it just as important as the content parts of our office. So something to think about as you think about offices in the county and cities. Biscayne Bay is you know, our central park, and it is a intergovernmental priority. We're focused on it, and the commission and the mayor elevated it to have. So we have a chief bay officer, Rella Begay, who works out of our office and focuses on this. And of course, your area has a wonderful national estuary program that we look to as one of the models. You'll hear from Jane, so I won't take away from her remarks, but we were the first county or city in the country to have an extreme heat officer. And we also, the mayor, Mayor Cava looked across the board, not only the work we did, but at the planning activities that take place in all of our departments and outside of county government that affect our future. So she has assigned us a special person to deal with intergovernmental planning with its basis in resilience. Next slide, please. So here again, these are the covers of the reports. They're all online. So you can see them, and we're going to go through them quickly. Next slide, please. Biscayne Bay is one action item number 1, a resilience strategy. And again, these are items that many of the estuarine areas around the country, including over on Southwest, have taken up. And we are new to the game of getting organized, not new to the game of focusing on managing Biscayne Bay, because much of it is within Miami-Dade County. But we now have a watershed management board, and the legislature requested a state commission on Biscayne Bay to us. So we went from having no management boards to 2. So we'll continue to work. We have a lot of challenges to keep the seagrasses healthy and many other items dealing with the bay. Next slide, please. I talked about the regional effort. I just wanted to highlight this piece around sea level rise, because this has been, I think, the hallmark product of the South Florida Regional Climate Change Compact for over the last almost 15 years. We've been providing our community, all of our cities and counties, with a unified projection of sea level rise. So all of our actions that we take as a county and within our partners in the community are ultimately going to be about where on those projections are we going to fall? Where are those models going to take us? How are our actions going to be sufficient in reducing greenhouse gases and adapting? So it's the technical basis, but the important part of this is it's the uniform. This is the one that we use throughout our region. Next slide, please. This just recaps the regional effort, and you'll see the Regional Climate Action Plan is being updated now. You'll be able to watch that on our website. It's a very thorough document, probably I think now in its 3rd edition. Next slide, please. So going to the adaptation plan, it's our sea level rise strategy. Thinking out decades about how we are going to adapt to a rising sea. And we don't see any way around that. Even if we have dramatic global increases in greenhouse gas emissions, the sea level rise, probably a meter is baked in. So that'll affect a very flat terrain like Miami-Dade County sitting on porous lime rock. So we've identified 5 strategies that are, we think, provide pathways forward. These are not the regulatory pieces. These are the broader ideas that we have to explore on the ground through pilot projects, working with our partners, cities, the 34 cities in the county. It does build on specific structures that are in place, like our expanding public transportation system, building transit-oriented development around those stations. It ends up that outcome of a coordinated transportation land use system is probably one of the most dramatic steps we can take to reduce greenhouse gases and protect and have an adaptation locational plan in place. I think that's really important, because sometimes people look for new efforts to underscore their work in adaptation and greenhouse gas reduction. But sometimes it's more important to make the things that you've already got going working and get the additional benefits of resilience planning that give you reduced greenhouse gases and adaptation strategies. Next slide, please. Here are those approaches. I don't want to go over my time, but you can see that they're structured around specific things, are being a landscape of canals. We know that's where we're going to have elevated water levels. Greenways and blueways, I think, is going to be a dramatic part of our location, what our landscape will look like. In 50 years, we plan to be here. We will not look the same. We cannot take a strategy that says we can keep the landscape intact in the status quo. That's not going to happen. Next slide, please. On the mitigation side, our climate action strategy is in 3 buckets, dealing with energy and buildings, land use and transportation, and water and waste activities. Next slide. We have those ambitious goals that many communities have of reaching net zero by 2050 and 50% reductions by 2030. We can make great strides. We can control what we do as a county. We're about 5% of the total emissions in our county are direct control of the county government. But all of us are challenged by the fact that we must work with the electric grid that is provided to us by our investor-owned utilities. We really need to partner with our investor-owned utilities to get dramatic changes in the way we produce electricity. If we don't do that, we can't get to net zero. It's just, we can't do that just with dealing with buildings and transportation. We've got to change the grid, especially as we say we're moving to electrification, which means there'll be even more demand for electric power. Next slide, please. This is a division of activities. You can see how transportation land use is so important to us with our airport and our port, as is our buildings. Next slide, please. Here, further elevation, and I guess I ran out of time. Guys, you go ahead. What happened, guys?
No, sorry, just hit the.
That's okay. I'm trying to finish, leave room for my partners here. I am at the end, so can you advance? I'm done. Yeah, that's a good one. Look, we have to worry about equity and health. You're going to hear a lot about health from Jane, but our economic development strategies to deal in underrepresented areas of neighborhoods of our community are a focus of all of our work. Next slide, please. And of course, we have to do it in a monolingual way, going back to all important aspects of communication. Next slide. Thank you, folks. Look forward to any questions.